I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here we are. My name's Mike, and I've been married to Lisa for about 6 years now. We had a pretty normal life, worked our jobs, took vacations, argued about the usual stuff. Honestly, I always thought she was a little high maintenance, but I loved her. She was smart, confident, and yeah, she could be a bitch sometimes, but I figured that was just her personality. Still, something felt off lately, like a little nagging doubt in the back of my head I couldn't shake. At first, it was small things. She'd be secretive about her phone, always texting someone, hiding her screen when I came near. She got suspiciously defensive whenever I asked about her whereabouts or who she was talking to. She'd brush it off with some trashy excuse, it's just my sister, or work stuff. But I knew better. Her behavior was different, colder even, when she thought I wasn't looking. She'd stay out late more often, claiming she had to cover for a client or meetings after hours. I didn't buy it, but I didn't have concrete proof, just gut feelings. Then one night I decided to follow her after she said she was working late at her office, a legal firm she worked at as some kind of paralegal. I was curious, mainly just to see if she was actually telling the truth. I parked down the street watching her building. It was late, around 10 p.m. She'd been acting strange all day, snapping at me over little things, brushing past me without a kiss. It felt like a warning sign. When I saw her walk out of the office building, I followed her car at a distance. She drove to some apartment complex I didn't recognize. I thought maybe she had a date, but then I saw her go inside with a guy I'd never seen before. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I kept watching. An hour later, the lights in the apartment flickered out. I knew I shouldn't be spying, but something inside me was burning with suspicion. I parked a little further away and waited, just to see if she'd come out again. After about 20 minutes, the door opened and they came out, him first, then her. I got a clear shot of them entering her car. She was leaning into him, giggling, touching his arm. It wasn't innocent. I recognized the guy, Tommy, her boss's brother. I'd heard she'd met him at some legal event they were both at a couple of weeks ago. But I never dreamed she'd sleep with him, not in a million years. I felt like my stomach dropped. I watched her drive off and I sat there for a second, stunned. The worst part, I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't want to do it right away. I needed to think. Still, the evidence was clear. She was cheating, and this wasn't some innocent flirtation. It was something much more serious. I'd caught her red-handed, or at least I had the proof of her betrayal. I wasn't sure how I was supposed to feel, anger, disgust, heartbreak all swirling together. But one thing was certain. Everything I thought I knew about our marriage was shattered. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding head and a mind spinning in circles. I looked at my phone, saw the pictures I took of her sneaking out that night. It was real, not some nightmare I could wake up from. I kept staring at the screen, feeling numb and furious all at once. I kept replaying the scene in my head, her giggling, touching him, acting some kind of young, reckless girl. It was like she was a different person and I was just left standing there helpless. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to confront her. I thought about what I'd say, how I'd lay everything out, how I'd ask her why. But honestly, I wasn't prepared for the storm that followed. I got out of bed, went into the living room, and waited. She came home around noon, walking in with that bitchy smirk she always wore when she thought she was above everything. She knew she'd gotten away with it, that she'd played me for a fool. I didn't waste time. I looked her straight in the eyes and just said, "Lisa, who the hell is Tommy?" Her face froze for a second, like she hadn't expected me to know, and then she shot back with some typical lies. "What are you talking about? You're paranoid." I was working late, remember, it's nothing. But I didn't buy it, not anymore. That smirk she gave the way. She acted so nonchalant, like she was proud of her secret, it pissed me off even more. She started lying faster, throwing out excuses. How Tommy was just a client, how they were working on some case together, how I was overreacting. It was all bullshit. She knew I saw the evidence. I could tell. But she still refused to admit it outright. That's when I lost it. I told her I had the photos, that I knew she was sleeping with him, and I wasn't going to stand for it anymore. Her eyes flashed with anger, her bitchy side came out full force. "Oh, so now you're accusing me of cheating. You think I'd do that? You're crazy, Mike. You always jump to conclusions. Maybe you're the one with the problem." She was trying to gaslight me, but I'd had enough. I told her if she wanted her little secret, fine, I'd give her what she wanted, an end to this marriage. I told her I knew everything and that I was done playing her game. Her reaction. She just sneered and said, "You don't know what you're talking about. You're just mad because I won't sleep with you anymore, and now you're trying to ruin me. Grow up." That was her way of spinning it, making herself the victim. But I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I felt like my world was crashing down around me, but I knew this wasn't going to be some quick fix. She'd lied, cheated, and betrayed me in ways I never thought possible. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all those moments, her cold eyes, her fake protests, the happiness she shared with him while pretending to love me. It hurt more than I expected. I realized I'd been blind for a long time, making excuses for her bad behavior. But now I knew the truth, and the truth was more painful than I ever imagined. I trusted her, loved her, and she'd thrown it all away for a quick fuck with her boss's brother. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew I couldn't stay in this hellhole anymore. The days that followed felt like walking through a fog. I couldn't focus on work, on anything really. Every time I saw her, I felt like I was suffocating. The betrayal cut deep, like a knife twisting in my gut. I kept replaying that night, those moments I caught her sneaking out, her lying through her teeth. I even went back to the pictures on my phone more times than I could count, trying to convince myself I was dreaming, that it wasn't real. But deep down, I knew it was. She tried to play it cool when I confronted her, acting like nothing was wrong, but I could see it in her eyes. That bitchy smirk faded into something colder, more calculated. She was trying to manipulate the situation, probably thinking she could smooth her way out of it. She kept insisting she loved me, that it was a mistake, that it didn't mean anything. Yeah, right. I told her I didn't want her apologies or her lies. I wanted the truth, plain and simple. But she just kept spinning stories, acting like I was the one overreacting, like I was the crazy one for even bringing it up. Honestly, I was furious but also hurt. More than anything, I felt stupid for not seeing it sooner. How could I have missed all the signs? The late nights, the secretive texts, the cold attitude when I tried to get close. She was a master at hiding it. And Tommy, her boss's brother, was just the cherry on top. I found out from someone at work that he'd been bragging about the perfect little affair, acting like they were the only two people in the world who knew the secret. That kind of arrogance just made it worse. I started doing some digging, trying to find out exactly how long this had been going on. That's when I discovered she'd been meeting him during case prep meetings, after hours in private when no one was around. I also learned that she'd lied about some of her recent absences, saying she was at meetings when she was actually with him. She'd even gone as far as to tell her friends she was doing important work, all the while sneaking around behind my back. It made me feel so betrayed, like I was the last to know. I couldn't believe how she lied so easily, how she could look me in the face and pretend she was innocent. She kept saying it was just sex, that it didn't mean anything, that she was stressed from work and needed some kind of escape. Jesus, I wanted to scream at her. How could she be so callous? So callous that she'd risk everything. My marriage, my trust, all because she wanted some quick thrill with her boss's brother. I wondered how many other lies she'd told, how many other secrets she was hiding. By then, I'd had enough. I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I started making plans, thinking about what I'd do next, how I'd confront her again, or whether I'd just walk away. The thought of losing her was like a punch in the chest, but staying in this nightmare, that was worse. I realized I needed to get some control back, to face this head-on, even if it meant destroying everything. One thing was clear. She wasn't going to stop lying, and I wasn't going to keep pretending I didn't see the truth. I had to decide whether I wanted to fight for what was left or cut my losses now. Everything I believed about us was crumbling, and I was left standing there, feeling like I'd been blindsided by someone I thought I knew. It was a bitter pill to swallow, knowing she'd betrayed me with someone I trusted, her own boss's brother. No less. I wondered how I'd ever look at her the same way again, or if I could even trust her at all after this. That night, after hours of lying awake, I finally decided I couldn't keep going like this. I needed answers, and I needed to hear her say it outright. No more lies, no more spinning stories. I told her I'd come home early that evening and I wanted her to be there, ready to talk. She looked at me with that same bitchy smirk, probably thinking I was bluffing or that I'd just backed down. But this time I was done playing nice. When she walked in, her eyes darted around like she was trying to find an escape route. I stood there cold and calm and said, "Lisa, I know everything. Tell me the truth about Tommy, about the meetings, about everything." Her face flickered with that familiar smirk, and she started her bullshit about how I was paranoid, how she'd never cheat on me, how I was just insecure. I cut her off. I told her I'd seen the pictures. I knew she'd been sneaking out with him, that I had proof. That's when she finally lost her temper. She started shouting, calling me crazy, accusing me of spying, of invading her privacy. She said I was a control freak, that I was making everything up because I was insecure. She insisted she loved me, that it was just sex, a mistake. She kept saying, but her voice was trembling with anger and her eyes told a different story. She was trying to gaslight me, I could tell. She wanted to make me question what I saw, what I knew was real. I felt a surge of rage and sadness all at once. How did it come to this? I'd always believed in us, in our marriage, but now it felt like I was talking to a stranger. I told her I couldn't do this anymore, that I was done with her lies. I asked her why she did it, why she threw everything away for what? Some stupid affair. She shrugged, got defensive, and threw out some garbage about needing excitement, about feeling stifled. She even had the nerve to say she was doing it for herself. That made me want to punch her. I told her I wouldn't be a part of her game anymore, that I'd give her the chance to come clean and tell me the truth, or I'd be leaving. She looked at me with a mixture of contempt and defiance, refusing to admit anything. I could see the hurt in my own eyes, but also the resolve that I wasn't going to be a fool anymore. The betrayal was too deep, and I knew I had to decide whether I was going to try to fix this or cut my losses. That night, I packed a bag. I didn't want to stay another second in that house, surrounded by her lies and her betrayal. I told her I was leaving, that I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies. She sneered, said something about how I was overreacting, how she'd never cheat just to see if I'd fall for it. But I was done listening. I'd heard enough. Words failed me, so I just grabbed my things and walked out, not knowing exactly where I was going, but knowing I couldn't stay in that hellhole anymore. It was the most helpless and angry I'd ever felt in my life. I was betrayed, humiliated, and broken, and I had no idea how I was supposed to pick myself up from this. The first few days after I left felt like I was in some kind of limbo. I stayed with a friend, trying to piece my mind together, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her smirk, her lies, the way she looked at Tommy like he was her world. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My stomach was in knots and my heart was heavy. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to what she was really like. She kept calling and texting nonstop, but I refused to answer. Every message was just another reminder of how much she'd betrayed me. I knew she was trying to manipulate me back, trying to make me feel guilty or sorry for her. But I didn't want to hear it. I was too angry, too hurt. I'd given her everything, my trust, my love, and she'd thrown it back in my face for a quick fuck with her boss's brother. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut every time I thought about it. Eventually, I decided I needed to see her face to face and get some closure, so I arranged to meet her at her place. When I walked in, she was sitting on the couch, looking smug, like she'd already won some kind of victory. She tried to play innocent, acting like I was the one overreacting again, like her cheating was just a little mistake she made because of stress. But I could see through her bullshit. I was done with her lies. We argued for a while, her throwing out every excuse in the book, how she'd been feeling trapped, how Tommy made her feel alive again, how she didn't want to hurt me but she just couldn't help herself. I listened, feeling my stomach turn. I told her that her "help me understand" act was pointless. She had crossed every line and I wasn't going to pretend it was okay anymore. I told her I was done, that I didn't want a wife who lied and cheated and thought she could just get away with it. She snapped back, calling me insecure and pathetic. That's when I finally snapped. I told her I deserved better than her lies, that I'd been a fool to trust her, and that I was done being her doormat. I said I'd file for divorce if she kept acting like she was some untouchable goddess who could cheat and manipulate her way out of everything. She just rolled her eyes and said I was overreacting, like I was the crazy one. That moment hit me hard, realizing how far gone she was, how little she cared about me or what we had. I left her apartment that night feeling empty, like I'd lost part of myself. But I also felt a strange sense of relief. I knew I couldn't keep living in her shadow, pretending everything was fine when it was. The betrayal ran too deep. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was starting to accept that I had to let go of the past. Maybe I'd find a way to pick up the pieces someday, but right now, all I could think about was getting out of that toxic cycle and reclaiming my life from the wreckage she left behind. It's been a few weeks now since I walked away from her, from that life we built together. Honestly, it's been the hardest thing I've ever done. Every day feels like a roller coaster. One moment I'm furious, the next I'm just numb. I keep replaying everything in my head, trying to find some kind of sense in the chaos. I've gone through every stage of betrayal: shock, anger, sadness, and now a strange sort of acceptance. I'm not gonna lie, part of me still aches, still questions if I could have done something differently, if I could have saved what was left of us. But deep down, I know the truth. I learned a lot from this nightmare. Trust, once shattered, is nearly impossible to rebuild, and I realize now that some betrayals cut too deep. The way she lied, the way she thought she could get away with it, that's what hurt the most. Not just the affair, but her attitude, her arrogance, like she was untouchable. I thought I knew her, but she turned out to be someone I didn't recognize. Honestly, I feel relief that I don't have to live in her shadow anymore, that I no longer have to pretend I don't see the truth. Looking back, I realize I should have trusted my instincts sooner. All those little signs I ignored, all the times I brushed off my gut feeling, they were right and I was wrong. I was stupid for not seeing the cracks in our marriage. But even if I could go back, I don't think I want to fix this. Not after finding out she was capable of lying so easily, of risking everything for a moment of passion with a guy who didn't give a damn about her. Now I'm focused on healing. I've started seeing a therapist, working on myself, trying to figure out who I am without her. I realized I deserve better than to be lied to and used. I want to rebuild my life, learn from this betrayal, and find someone who values honesty and loyalty. I don't hate her, not anymore. I just don't have any more room for her in my life. She's a chapter I'd rather forget. So I guess the biggest lesson I've learned is that sometimes the truth hurts, but it's better to face it than live in denial. Trust is fragile, and when it's broken, it's almost impossible to fix. What matters now is that I move forward stronger and wiser. I hope anyone out there dealing with betrayal remembers that healing is a process, and it takes time. But in the end, you'll come out the other side. And no matter how bad it gets, you'll find a way to rebuild, to start fresh. That's what I plan to do.